Most people think they know Aha, that quirky Norwegian band with the revolutionary animated music video who vanished after Take On Me, right? Wrong. What if I told you that this so-called one-hit wonder has actually sold over 100 million records worldwide, had 30 charting singles, and is still selling out massive stadiums today? The truth about Aha isn't just shocking. It exposes one of the biggest, most deliberate lies in music history. Behind that deceptively catchy synth riff lies a story so dark it involves internal warfare, devastating health scares, unimaginable creative genius, and a deception so massive that even the band members themselves became victims of it. We're talking about mysterious wall substances oozing brown liquid, a 15-year-old creating a world-conquering melody in a literal bomb shelter, and three men whose bond was shattered by the very success they so desperately craved. This isn't just about a band. It's a chilling expose of how the music industry can completely rewrite history, making millions believe a manufactured lie. Get ready, because everything you thought you knew about Aha is about to be turned upside down. Here's something that will absolutely blow your mind. While Americans smugly dismiss Aha as a fleeting novelty, they've actually had more sustained global chart success than most bands considered legends. In the UK alone, they've racked up an astonishing 15 top 40 hits. In Germany, they're not just popular, they're treated like music royalty, filling arenas year after year. Travel to South America, and you'll find them performing for crowds of 200,000 people who sing every single word to songs Americans have never even heard of. This band has topped charts in 27 countries, held the #1 spot on the Eurochart Hot 100 for a mind-boggling 9 consecutive weeks, and their undeniable influence resonates in everything from the sprawling soundscapes of Coldplay to the retro-futuristic synth pop of The Weeknd's Blinding Lights. But here's where the story gets truly twisted. This selective amnesia wasn't just an American phenomenon. The band themselves began to believe the destructive narrative. Morton Harkett, the enigmatic lead singer with that impossibly high, soaring voice, has even felt at times like they're only known for that one song. Imagine spending decades creating groundbreaking music, pouring your soul into art, only to be told your entire life's work doesn't matter, because people only remember one thing you did when you were young. The psychological damage of such a label is something most people can't even begin to comprehend. This American music industry's selective memory didn't just hurt their feelings, it cost them tens of millions of dollars. After Take On Me utterly dominated the charts, their record label, Warner Brothers, aggressively pushed them to replicate that exact sound. When the band refused, daring to release Manhattan Skyline, a sprawling 6-minute epic that truly showcased their raw artistic ambitions, radio stations outright rejected it. The label's brutal message was clear: it's too long, too complex, too different. They were told they'd lost the American market because they had the audacity to prove they were more than just a novelty act. Yet the most shocking part, the song that made them famous, almost never existed at all. Picture this scene. It's 1978. A 15-year-old kid named Magni Furuholmen is messing around on a cheap keyboard. He's not in some fancy studio, but in what used to be a literal bomb shelter underneath a kindergarten in Oslo, Norway. Alongside his friend Paul Waaktaar-Savoy, he's experimenting. Suddenly, his fingers discover a melody, a sequence of notes that would eventually be heard by billions of people across the globe. But Paul's initial reaction wasn't excitement, it was pure disgust. "That's so cheesy, that's so poppy, we can't use that," he immediately declared. They were aspiring to be serious musicians, deeply influenced by the raw power of the Doors and the psychedelic genius of Jimi Hendrix. This bouncy, undeniably commercial-sounding riff felt like selling out before they'd even started. So they shelved it. For years, that now legendary melody sat forgotten, gathering dust while they tirelessly pursued their serious musical ambitions. What makes this origin story even more incredible, almost preordained, is the tragic connection that would eventually weave their third member into this unfolding destiny. Magna's father, a talented trumpeter and orchestra leader, had tragically perished in a plane crash back in 1969. In a bizarre twist of fate, a young Morton Harkett and his brother had actually witnessed the harrowing aftermath of that very crash while returning from a family vacation. Neither boy knew the other existed, but destiny, through tragedy, had already linked them. Years later, when Morton finally met Paul and Magna, the first thing he heard was that discarded, cheesy melody from the bomb shelter. His reaction was immediate, visceral, and ultimately prophetic. This is it. This is the key to the world. He didn't just like it, he threatened to leave the band entirely if they didn't use it. A 15-year-old's throwaway riff, rejected by his best friend, saved by a stranger who had unknowingly witnessed his father's death. This is the impossible, almost mythical way Take On Me was truly born. But creating the song was just the beginning of their unfolding nightmare. By 1983, the three ambitious young Norwegians had finally made it to London, brimming with colossal dreams, but with utterly empty pockets. What they found waiting for them was a reality so brutally harsh it nearly broke them beyond repair. They managed to rent a flat in Forest Hill that was something ripped straight out of a horror movie. Mice scurried within the walls, rats brazenly roamed outside, and the very walls of their supposed sanctuary literally began to ooze mysterious brown liquid when they bravely attempted to paint them. Morton would never forget it, painting a wall only to watch gooey substance emerge like out of boils that popped and seeped brown liquid. To merely survive the biting London cold, they were forced to keep their electric oven on constantly, dangerously filling the tiny apartment with gas fumes that left them dizzy, sick, and perpetually on edge. They were living on moldy cakes, whatever scraps of food they could scavenge, and a dwindling supply of hope, desperately trying to get anyone in the cutthroat music industry to simply listen to their demos. Record company after record company slammed the door in their faces. They were repeatedly told that Norwegian bands couldn't make it internationally, that their unique sound was too weird, and that nobody on the global stage cared about Scandinavian pop music. The worst part of this soul-crushing period, they recorded Take On Me 3 separate times, and each version, bafflingly, was an utter disaster. The first producer, Tony Mansfield, was obsessively fixated on a groundbreaking but sterile machine called the Fairlight. He relentlessly tried to force their organic, vibrant sound into a rigid digital perfection. The result was a lifeless, sterile rendition that bore no resemblance to the electrifying demo that had first captivated them. When this version was released, it flopped completely, barely registering a blip. Paul and Magn, utterly spent and defeated, were ready to give up. They had poured every last penny, every ounce of their being into this dream, living in conditions that were barely human, only to watch their cherished dream song get butchered by producers who simply couldn't grasp their vision. But Morton, with an almost supernatural tenacity, refused to quit. He somehow convinced them to try one more time with one more producer. That single decision, born from sheer desperation, would change absolutely everything. Enter Alan Tarney, brought in as their last desperate hope. Unlike the previous producers who had tried to shoehorn a-ha into their own preconceived notions, Tarney actually listened to their original demo. He then said something that genuinely floored them. "This is perfect as it is. Let's just make it sound better." In an almost unbelievable feat, in just one single day, they recorded the version of Take On Me that would ultimately conquer the world and defy all expectations. But even with perfect recording finally in hand, the song was still floundering. Radio stations remained stubbornly unwilling to play it, and their record label, teetering on the edge of cutting their losses, was rapidly losing faith. That's when Jeff Ayeroff, a visionary Warner Brothers executive, had an idea that, at the time, seemed utterly insane: spend an absolute fortune on a music video using an experimental animation technique that had never ever been attempted on such a grand, ambitious scale. Steve Barron, the groundbreaking director behind Michael Jackson's iconic Billie Jean video, was hired to create something truly unprecedented. The technique was called rotoscoping, an incredibly laborious process involving filming live actors and then meticulously hand-drawing animation over every single frame. It took an agonizing 16 weeks and a staggering 3,000 individual drawings to create the mere 4-minute video. The cost for an unknown Norwegian band was nothing short of astronomical. The concept itself was pure, unadulterated genius, a captivating comic book world where the animated hero could literally pull a real woman into his two-dimensional reality. Bunty Bailey, the actress who played the beguiling love interest, became an instant, indelible part of music video history as she was quite literally drawn into another world. The video wasn't just promoting a song, it was single-handedly creating a new, breathtaking form of art. When MTV, the undeniable kingmaker of the era, began playing the video in heavy rotation, everything changed overnight. The song that had failed twice before, dismissed and forgotten, suddenly rocketed to #1 in America and 26 other countries. The video swept the MTV Video Music Awards, winning an astonishing 6 accolades, and has now been viewed over 1 billion times on YouTube. But this stratospheric success, this sudden, blinding fame, came with a devastating price tag, a cost that nearly destroyed the band from within. Fame for many is the ultimate answer to all problems, the golden key to endless possibilities. For a-ha, it became poison, creating new, far more dangerous problems than they had ever faced in their struggling London flat. The 3 friends who had endured unimaginable hardship together suddenly found themselves locked in bitter, relentless combat over money, credit, and creative control. The simmering tensions that had always existed beneath the surface, carefully suppressed, now exploded into full-scale warfare. The most volatile issue, the true powder keg, was songwriting credits. Paul, as the primary composer, was receiving the lion's share of the royalties, while Magni and Morton felt their vital contributions were being callously ignored. Magni, a true architect of their sound, had crafted musical themes and intricate keyboard parts that were absolutely defining. Yet because he wasn't technically writing lyrics or basic chord progressions, he wasn't receiving proper, equitable credit. The resentment festered, building up over years until it became a toxic, corrosive force. His frustration was palpable. He felt a constant underestimation of his role, seeing his defining riffs and themes that changed the entire character of their songs completely overlooked. But the real, undeniable breaking point came in 1999. After a particularly grueling and stressful meeting with record executives, Magni was driving home when he was suddenly overcome by an overwhelming, terrifying drowsiness. He nearly passed out at the wheel, narrowly avoiding what could have been a fatal accident. At the hospital, doctors delivered a chilling diagnosis: atrial fibrillation, a dangerous irregular heart rhythm disorder directly caused by the crushing weight of stress. The connection was undeniable. Periods where he was pushed the hardest emotionally were the periods when his heart was hit. It all had to do with the band and the band's history. The group that had given him everything he ever wanted had, quite literally, almost killed him. This terrifying health scare finally forced them to confront the devastating reality that their incredible success was, in fact, systematically destroying them. But even then, the deep-seated problems were far from over. While Paul and Magni were locked in a bitter, years-long struggle over songwriting credits and financial recognition, Morton faced an entirely different, uniquely agonizing kind of hell. His striking Nordic looks, combined with his impossibly wide and soaring vocal range, naturally made him the undeniable frontman, the magnetic face of the band. But this blessing quickly transformed into a cruel curse, turning him into something he never wanted to be, a teen heartthrob whose physical appearance relentlessly overshadowed his profound artistic contributions. Magni was brutally, unflinchingly honest about it. Without Morton's beautiful body and nice face, they probably would have avoided a lot of problems. This reveals the immense destructive pressure Morton endured. The media's relentless obsession with his chiseled features created a paradoxical dynamic where he was simultaneously the most famous member and tragically the most isolated. Photographers constantly badgered him to remove his shirt for photo shoots, reducing him to a visual commodity. Teen magazines shamelessly focused on his appearance rather than celebrating his extraordinary 4-octave vocal range. During concerts, the screams of adoring fans were so deafeningly loud that they often completely drowned out the very music he was performing. Morton found himself trapped in a gilded cage, a prison of his own face, utterly unable to be taken seriously as a profound artist because people were too perpetually distracted by how he looked. The psychological toll of this objectification was enormous, a wound that never truly healed. He became obsessively fixated on vocal flawless, feeling it was the only way to unequivocally prove he was far more than just pretty face. Pressure extended far beyond merely looking good. As the iconic face of the band, every single interview, every photo shoot, every public appearance fell squarely on his shoulder. Paul and Magna, to a certain extent, could retreat into the background, finding solace in artistic anonymity. Morton, however, was perpetually, relentlessly in the blinding glare of the spotlight. This constant, unyielding attention made him develop a very thin skin and an agonizing inability to truly relax, even decades later. He felt as if his brain would just remove him from the moment during an interview, as if he were watching himself from afar, completely disconnected. Fame had, quite literally, severed him from his own life, and these deep internal cracks would soon lead to repeated spectacular implosions. By the early 1990s, the unrelenting internal tensions within a-ha had reached a catastrophic breaking point. The band that had once conquered the entire world was now spectacularly falling apart, piece by agonizing piece. Paul, seeking solace and creative freedom, moved to New York and immersed himself in his compelling side project, Savoy, with his wife. Magna, equally driven, threw himself into the world of visual art and launched his own solo music ventures. Morton, tired of being defined by his looks, began meticulously planning a solo career that would finally prove he was more than just a-ha's pretty face. The first official breakup came in 1994, though it wasn't really official in the traditional sense. They simply stopped working together, the silence deafening. For 6 long, uncertain years, they pursued entirely separate paths, leaving their legion of devoted fans around the globe wondering if they would ever see a-ha perform together again. Paul achieved critical and commercial success with Savoy, Magni established himself as a respected visual artist, and Morton released powerful solo albums that truly showcased his astonishing vocal range and artistic depth. But here's the truly twisted part. Despite the pain, the bitterness, and the separate successes, they kept getting pulled back together. In 1998, a surprising opportunity arose. They reunited for a prestigious Nobel Peace Prize concert, performing the emotionally charged Summer Moved On and the enduring classic The Sun Always Shines on TV. The audience reaction was so overwhelmingly passionate, so visceral, that it reignited a spark, convincing them to try again. They released Minor Earth Major Sky in 2000, which, to everyone's surprise, became a massive chart-topping hit across Europe. Then, inevitably, they broke up again, and then, defying all logic, they got back together. And then, once more, they broke up again. This agonizing pattern repeated itself over and over, like a deeply toxic relationship that neither side could fully escape, a magnetic force that kept drawing them back into the same destructive orbit. Each reunion brought a glimmer of hope, a promise of renewed harmony, and each subsequent breakup brought even deeper bitterness and more profound disillusionment. The most dramatic and seemingly final split came in 2009 when they emphatically announced a farewell tour, proclaiming it would be their absolute final goodbye to the world stage. Fans around the globe, heartbroken but resigned, scrambled to buy tickets to what they truly believed would be their last chance to witness a-ha live. The tour itself was an emotional, nostalgic, and seemingly definitive curtain call. Yet, in a move that shocked everyone in 2015, they announced they were reuniting again for the iconic Rock in Rio festival. Then came another album, Cast in Steel. Then a critically acclaimed MTV Unplugged session. Then yet another world tour. The cycle, against all odds, continued, driven by an unbreakable, almost inexplicable bond. a-ha, it turned out, was never really based on friendship. It was something far stronger, far more primal, a community in music that transcended their countless personal conflicts and emotional scars. Now we arrive at the most profoundly shocking part of this entire saga. While a-ha was endlessly breaking up and reuniting, while they grappled with relentless internal conflicts and battled debilitating health problems, the rest of the world was luxuriating in an expansive, brilliant catalog of music that most Americans never even knew existed. Songs like the epic The Sun Always Shines on TV, the sophisticated Manhattan Skyline, the haunting Cry Wolf, the anthemic Stay on These Roads, and dozens of other masterpieces were topping charts and selling millions of copies everywhere on Earth, except for the United States. The sheer numbers are absolutely staggering, almost unbelievable. In the UK, they've had 15 top 40 hits. In Germany, they're not just popular, they are celebrated as one of the most successful international acts of all time. In their homeland of Norway, they are national treasures, revered and beloved. In South America, they routinely perform for stadium crowds that dwarf most American stadium shows, with their 2019 concert in Brazil alone drawing nearly 200,000 people who sang along to deep cuts that American radio has never once dared to play. Yet, the American music industry's profoundly selective amnesia, fueled by a relentless self-serving media narrative, created a story so powerful, so pervasive, that it became an accepted truth worldwide. Music journalists, influential critics, and even other musicians, utterly oblivious to the global reality, began blindly referring to a-ha as a one-hit wonder, despite an overwhelming, undeniable mountain of evidence to the absolute contrary. The label became so deeply ingrained, so pervasive, that it began to warp the band's own perception of their monumental success. Morton still felt, even after all this time, like they were just in the starting group, that they still had a body of work to leave behind, to be proud of. Here stands a man who has sold over 100 million records, performed for millions of ecstatic fans across the globe, and undeniably influenced countless artists, yet he still feels a gnawing sense that he has something to prove. The irony is absolutely devastating. a-ha's perceived failure to have multiple chart-topping hits in America is, when viewed through a global lens, actually one of the biggest, most enduring successes in the entire history of music. They have achieved something most bands can only ever dream of: sustained, multi-decade international success across nearly every continent. But because American media continues to arrogantly dominate global music coverage, their incredible, world-spanning achievements have been systematically erased, simply written out of the popular narrative. Thankfully, recent artists have finally started to acknowledge a-ha's profound pioneering influence more openly. The Weeknd's monstrous hit Blinding Lights, one of the biggest songs of the 2020s, explicitly utilizes drum patterns and synth sounds that are direct, unmistakable homages to Take On Me. Coldplay has reverently covered their songs in concert. Even the notoriously sampling-averse Kanye West has openly sampled their work. The influence is utterly undeniable, a towering monument to their genius, but the widespread rightful recognition, sadly, remains tragically limited. The public never saw the full extent of the damage. Behind the scenes, the stress was taking a physical toll that was far more serious than anyone imagined. Magnie's terrifying heart problems weren't just a one-time scare. They were part of a dangerous pattern. The pressure was a sickness that plagued all three of them in different ways. Morton's relentless perfectionism and crippling anxiety surrounding live performances had reached dangerous, debilitating levels. You could hear the frustration in his voice during rehearsals, pleading for a break because of the strain on his instrument. The crushing pressure to consistently hit those famous, impossibly high notes in Take On Me, night after night for decades, had exacted a devastating toll that fans never, ever saw. Paul, meanwhile, had been silently grappling with his own profound demons. The immense responsibility of being the primary songwriter, the constant gnawing pressure to replicate their early unprecedented success, and the endless corrosive internal conflicts had slowly eaten away at him. Despite all the trauma, the betrayals, and the nearly catastrophic health crises, the band, against all logic, continues to create, to perform, to exist. They embarked on new tours, released new material, and wrestled with their individual struggles, often publicly. Morton's relentless pursuit of vocal perfection continues to this day, a testament to his artistic integrity, but also a constant reminder of the immense burden of his gift. Magnie's health remains a concern, a living scar from the band's tumultuous history, yet he continues to pour his creative energy into both music and art. Paul, the stoic musical architect, still navigates the complex terrain of his primary role, forever bound to the melodies he conjured decades ago. The psychological scars of their unique journey, the brutal, double-edged sword of fame, are still profoundly evident in each of them. Their bond, never truly based on friendship, endures, a testament to an unbreakable musical connection that defies all personal animosities and past hurt. Question lingers, a silent hum behind every chord. Will a ha ever truly stop? Or is this toxic, beautiful, creatively explosive cycle destined to continue forever, an endless echo of a bomb shelter melody that changed the world? So there you have it, the stunning, untold global success of a-ha, phenomenon deliberately buried by a myopic American music industry. We've peeled back the layers to reveal the agonizing internal battles, the terrifying health sacrifices, and the profound, almost criminal deception that shaped their trajectory. You've witnessed the birth of a global hit in a bomb shelter, the desperation in London, and the animated miracle that launched them to impossible heights, only for that very success to become a poison. But the most pressing question remains: is America finally truly ready to acknowledge a-ha's monumental, undeniable legacy? Are we, as a global audience, prepared to dismantle pervasive one-hit wonder myth and recognize them for the pioneering, enduring, and massively influential band they have always been? The one-hit wonder label isn't just a casual inaccuracy, it's a deliberate historical omission, powerful lie that continues to define their entire, still unfolding, deeply mysterious story. And perhaps that enduring mystery is the most shocking truth of all.